Welcome everyone to this AMA session. I'm glad you're joining me on a weekday evening, so that obviously shows at least there's some interest. That's very encouraging for us. Okay, so as I said, I think what we'll do is I'll just speak very briefly over the about GCPP and Takshashila. That I mean, in one sense, it is. If I have to be candid, in one sense, it's going to be a sales pitch, but also hopefully that it's going to answer some of the questions that you might have about the courses and about this thing. So I'll just do that, and then we'll open it up for all forms of questions that you might have. Okay, so Takshila is an independent center for research and education in public policy. We've been in existence in various forms since 2007, but the first educational program as such was started in 2012, which is the graduate certificate in public policy, which most of you will be applying for. And so this will be the ninth to 10th year of our existence in terms of education in public policy. We are non-partisan and non-profit, which is extremely important for us. We're not aligned with any political party. So therefore, I think we're quite independent on that front. We're also not for profit. So we're a registered Section 25 company. In terms of values, and I think this is very important. So as I said, we're not aligned with any political parties, but we definitely have quite strong political values. And those values are freedom, individual freedom, both economic and political freedom, openness, tolerance, pluralism, and responsible citizenship. But when we say responsible citizenship, I don't want to get into a civics lesson right now because we'll do that when we start the courses, but it means that we have adherence to the Indian Republic, which then translates to the fact that we have adherence to the Indian Constitution. Vision. Why are we doing any of the things that we're doing? We hope to transform India through better public policies. And while strictly being aware of the fact that transforming India is an extremely arduous task, it's a difficult task, it's a marathon. In fact, it's not something that you can do overnight. It takes years to transform India. And therefore, we can't do this alone. Therefore, we need extremely smart people like all of you who join the course. In a way, I mean, joining the course is just one of the ways, but to basically be part of this journey with us to transform India. And what we believe is that apart from a lot of other things, there is a governance gap in India in terms of the things that is required, the things that we aspire for, and the things that the state can actually deliver. And that is what you would call as a governance gap. So the aim in some way is to bridge this governance gap and to close this governance gap through better public policy education. How do we go about doing this? Takshashila is essentially one of three things, or all of three things. One is that we are a policy school, which you'll be largely interacting with. So we teach public policy to the good people aspect of it, or the smart people aspect of it. But we're also a think tank, which means that we do research in public policy. I'll speak about research in just a very short while. But we do research on public policy topics and hope to bring out really good ideas for transforming India and put it out in the public domain. And we do all of this by being a network think tank. That is, we believe that, in today's day and age, you can't be just an office building, brick and mortar store in Delhi and try to influence policy, but you have to be a network think tank. We do events, we write, we go on TV, and we try to persuade people. So it's a combination of all of these three things. So therefore, the way we plan to transform India is by connecting good ideas, that is the research ideas, with good people through the policy school and good networks through our, through our media and outreach programs. So that's the way we plan to do things. So that's broadly about Takshashila. Now, why GCPP? Why should you sign up for this course? This is where it starts getting a bit more into like a sales pitch, but hopefully I just give you the broad highlights of the program, which I think should interest you. We start off with the fact that, irrespective of which stream you specialize in, all of them have extremely strong public policy fundamentals, which is that you begin with policy analysis, economic reasoning, and effective communication. So economic reasoning is a very strong foundation for a lot of the things that we teach, because economics is to public policy like what science is to engineering, right? It forms the foundations of a lot of these things. So there is going to be emphasis on economics. There's going to be a lot of emphasis on policy analysis, understanding, for example, how bureaucracies function, understanding start with something as broad as what is the difference between a nation, a state, and a country, for example. Where does the government come in? What is the role of the constitution? How do you differentiate between a republic and democracy? So these are extremely probably elementary aspects, but these are the bedrock before you understand anything about public policy. So we start with that. And then there is a strong emphasis on communication as well. So from how do you write an op-ed to how do you write to persuade people, because a lot of public policy, as you would imagine, is about persuading others, right? Because you can come up with the best ideas to solve a lot of the problems, but if you don't effectively communicate that to the rest of the world, then you're not, those ideas will go in vain. So there's a lot of emphasis on effective communication for public policy. By and large, we follow this thing called framework-based learning. So the idea is that the learning, the way we teach or the way we go about studying public policy is through frameworks. A lot of these frameworks are things that Takshashila has built on our own over the years, because you find that when we started this entire thing on GCPP, we found that there's some bits on economics, for example, for sure. There's economics as a subject was well established, but public policy, you'd find that you can't just borrow syllabus from Harvard or from Cambridge and Oxford, etc., because public policy is exceptionally local and regional in the way it works. So if you don't contextualize any of these theories to the Indian context, then you'd find that it's not really useful. So a lot of the effort went into building frameworks that is useful for and relevant to the Indian context. And as you can see around here, there's a combination of these things. So you can take, for example, just a standard deadweight loss concept of tariffs and apply that to the and take that and understand that. But you also have to understand why Indian policymakers choose tariffs over something else. How does that play into the international trade policy of the government, etc. So there's a whole bunch of things going on there. This is something which is extremely, according to me, interesting. You'll also have, for everyone, we might have an introduction to Arthashastra, but specifically for the DNFA, we'll have a lot more detail of how do you apply principles of Arthashastra into modern day strategic thinking, which I'm very excited about. What we'll also have, and I can nearly promise this, is that we'll have extremely exciting guest seminars. So as I said, we are a network think tank, which means that we can call some of the smartest people in the country to come and give webinars for us. And since we're largely, again, online based, the transaction cost of doing this is also reduced. This is just from the last cohort. We had Apar Gupta talking about privacy and data policy. We had, of course, Ajay Shah talking about the art and science of policy making. We had Ambassador Shiv Shankar Menon talking about, again, security challenges for India. Professor Rajiv Gowda from the Rajya Sabha talking about how parliament works. That is Shruti Rajgopalan talking about economic policy making in India, and so on and so forth, how judiciary works, etc. So there's a whole bunch of, I would say, extremely interesting webinars that go on during the course. But what is, I think, also exciting to be part of GCPP is that from there on, any other webinars, events, etc., that we do, you're automatically kind of invited to those because you're part of the GCPP family. And as an alumni, you get automatic admission into any of our webinars and guest talk that we do. Yeah, there's just a continuation. We've had people from the Navy. We've had the IDFC chairman. We've had interesting talks on ethics in biobanking. Again, extremely diverse topics from financial crisis to biobanking. I think we've had, the entire range between that. So, yeah. One of the really exciting aspects of the course for me, both from a teaching perspective, and I would imagine based on the feedback that I get from students, from the students' perspective, is the workshops and simulations. So we spend a good first probably first 5 to 6 weeks on establishing the fundamentals that we spoke about until now. And then it gets into the application mode because you don't learn until you apply, right? So the second workshop, for example, is probably the most exciting part of the course, where you will start applying all of the things that you'd learned in public policy until then into extremely relevant real life policy problems. So this is just to give you an idea. There's there in just the previous cohort, I think we asked the GCPP students to come up with a policy to come up with policy recommendations to solve for the quality of education in the country. We also had one on how do you build tourism, as you can say, as you can see that how do you get tourism back running after the COVID. But even before COVID, you realize it is not doing as great as it should. There were more number of visitors to the Louvre per month than there was to the entire country of India. So how do you change those things? For example, there's policy recommendations on that. There are policy recommendations on building a social security policy for gig workers, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of really exciting policy simulations that we do, which works in the following way. We give you a real life policy problem. And over 3 days, we brainstorm together, you work in groups, you get together and you come up with, there's a systematic way that we teach you in which you can use to come up with policy recommendations. So that's the way it's happened. In the past, this has actually led to some really interesting developments where we've had students take the results of this workshop exercise and actually submit their proposals to Parliament. We've had one group who's also given, a testimony to the standing committee of Parliament as well. So, I mean, exciting things can happen because it's real life problems. An exciting part of the DNFA, that is the Defense and Foreign Affairs specialization, is this thing called Exercise Amrut, where essentially it's a crisis simulation game where in groups you represent different countries, and I don't want to give away too much because a large part of it is a surprise, but in essence, there will be different forms of crisis. It could be a cyber warfare crisis, an economic collapse, or it could be a nuclear war. But there's a whole bunch of things happening there, and you will have to figure out within your group as to how do you respond as a country, which again means that you will have to apply all of the things that you learned about power projection, about strategic thinking, and so on into these things. We normally communicate. I mean, there's multiple communication channels. We meet every weekend over the webinars. Every Saturday, we have about 3 webinars where you meet with faculty. But we also have Slack, where a lot of interaction also takes place, because it's, over the week, you might be interested to, talk about different aspects, either with faculty or amongst yourselves. So a lot of communication happens. A lot of learning, in fact, happens from peers. That is one student learning from the other because of these channels. It could be Slack, it could be, the medium doesn't matter, but the idea is that students get together and learn a lot. They work together on different aspects of the course. There are, group-led activities, and there's a lot of communication between students as well, where basically it's each other sharing your learnings. You might come up with an interesting article that you want to share and your own thoughts on it. You might have written something that you want to share and get feedback on, and therefore I think that's this is a nice forum to do that. Finally, I'll say this: the way I look at GCPP is that not only do you learn a lot of interesting things about all of the things that we spoke about, but it's also about building your own portfolio of work, which is important irrespective of which career you might choose to go to. If you want to build a career in public policy, obviously this will be helpful, but even otherwise, some of these things can be extremely useful. So we find that, for instance, just to give you an idea, you can check out even on our website, school.takshila.org.in, you'd find that there is an entire page dedicated to student work. So you can get a glimpse of what students have written on. So there's a student-led community blog page where a lot of students have written, but they've also had, I've had students write quite a few op-eds in newspapers. We've had students start this one student who started a newsletter. We've had a student, multiple students, in fact, do podcast with us, etc. So all of this goes into building your own kind of portfolio of work. Yeah, Malti, over to you.
Thanks, Anupam. So Anupam has covered the pedagogy, the curriculum. So just to give us all a kind of a bird's eye view of the program and what the 12 weeks of it. So I'd like us to just focus on from week 1 to week 12. So essentially we have, since we're catering to working professionals, we do have sessions only on Saturdays. Each webinar is 90 minutes long with breaks in between. So on Saturday, we start at 9:30. For example, we end the first session by 11, give a half an hour break. Then the next is from 11:30 to 1. Then there's a 1 hour lunch break. And then the last session is from 2 to 3:30. So essentially all your live webinars, curriculum related, happen only on Saturdays. Any other sessions that we might have, and these could mostly guest talks, and occasionally maybe some curriculum sessions that we might want to take, will be held during the weekdays, and that's held after 7 p.m. So, and we will give you advance notice on those as well. So essentially, the 12 weeks, all 4 streams start at the same time, and they conclude also at the same time. So we'll have the 4 specializations starting week 1. The core modules that we see here in MOVE is up till week 5 will be covered for all the 4 specializations. So we have all 4 streams attending these sessions together. After which we get into the specialization weeks from week 6 onwards all the way up to week 12. So we also give an option for those who might not be too clear on which stream that they would like to kind of take up eventually. We do give that option by week 5, by which time they would have been exposed to sufficient content in the core modules to help them decide which specialization they would like to opt for. So we do give that option too for those of us who might not be too clear on what to take up at the onset. Okay. Apart from that, we have grading components. High level, there are 4 quizzes that we typically conduct across the 12 weeks. We also have a final assignment that goes out on the 12th week. And we have something called the public engagement, which essentially requires us to kind of expose us to the writing aspect, which is very crucial and is a critical, and we at Takshashila to kind of encourage that because it really makes a difference once you start practicing how to write. And we do have a core module dedicated just for that, for effective writing. So those are the 3 grading components by and large: the quizzes, the public engagement, and the final assignment. Each has its own weightage. Yeah, apart from that, we do have guest talks that are interspersed throughout the 12 weeks. And these can be attended, as Anupam mentioned, by any of the streams. And we also kind of invite alumni for those talks. I think I've kind of more or less covered.
Yeah, that's just to give you a broad overview of how the 12 weeks will look like. This is, just where do Takshashila alumni work? We've had alumni work for the government in terms of from PMO to different ministries. We've had people working for RBI, we've political parties themselves or political consulting, public affairs in terms of, the entire now PR and public affairs teams of different corporates. Of course, people go on to work for other think tanks and some for Takshashila themselves. Journalism, of course, that's one other sector, and nonprofits and social enterprises. So these are just where Takshashila alumni have ended up in. One of your questions might be, right up front, let me try and preempt that. We don't do placements, just letting you know, but we are a network, so we help, as a lot of these people come and ask us whether we have students who are interested, who are available for work, and there are students who we act more as a matchmaker at times, but we don't do placements per se. That's just a preemptive answer. Okay, so that's it from our side. I think now we'll just open it up. The floor is yours. Ask us any question. Yeah.
Hello.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
If I do get into, and if I make I get this course through and I want to make a career out of it, how do I fit myself with an inclination to tourism, and how do I get to appeal myself? Should I have a chance to get into the national tourism ministry of government tourism ministry department, etc.? Would you put a will I be able to leverage a contact through that, through this course? So these were my interests, like where I wanted to make a entry into it. That is the reason for my application.
Okay. I mean, again, there's no point in promising the universe and not delivering it. I've been candid right up front. I don't think we can help you get a job in that front. That's not something that we offer at all. That might happen only through serendipity, right? If at that point someone has asked us saying, do you know any smart people who work on tourism and we happen to know you, we might. But that's not a promise I can make. I will make.
Okay, one last question before I wind up. I'm sure others also have a lot of questions. So one last question is, okay, I saw this course curriculum which was explained, and finally the final assignment so what is this assignment based on? See, if I have an inclination towards tourism, which you mentioned, but I found in some of the electives or the other courses, the tourism was not mentioned. How do I specifically, what sort of an assignment is the expectation as the final dissertation? What is the expectation there if I want to match my interest with this course?
Yeah. So in the GCPP, in the 3-month course, what we do is we give a particular topic for everyone, because you can't customize it to each person's interest. As you can imagine, in a cohort of about 200, you would have 200 different interests. So it would be impossible to tailor make it according to each person. But the takeaway is that there is a framework that we teach. So that framework that you can apply to education can equally be applied to tourism or to health or to any other public policy problem. So the idea is what you will take away from the course is that you will take away a particular framework, a lens through which you can better analyze for public policy problems, to come up with solutions for those problems, and how do you advocate for those solutions to any of these problems. So that is the framework. That framework you can apply to anything. So we have had tourism, one problem as tourism before, but there's no guarantee that that's going to be the same problem we do every time, right? Because it'll be generally what is the most pressing kind of problem, public policy problem of that time. Yeah, Shubham?
So sir, I recently, 3 months back, I started working in an IT firm, but I'm pretty sure that I have to change my domain towards public policy. So I'm thinking about post-graduation towards this area. So how does this certification, like, is this the right step to go towards, like, will this certification help me in getting any other courses of post-graduation, and how will it help me as just, like, I'm a starter in this field. So how can it help me better?
Oh, thanks. That's a wonderful question. In fact, one of the things I had to mention, which I did not, was a lot of our students then go on to do masters in public policy across the world. So we have students who've done the GCPP. So GCPP, remember, is an introductory course, right? It's a 3-month course. It's quite rigorous, but it's still, I would peg it as an introductory course. So a lot of people do the GCPP to get an idea of what are they entering into this domain of public policy. And once they do that, if it so happens that they want to change their career into this, and if they want to do a lot more of it, we have students who go on to do a master's in public policy or a PhD in public policy, depending on where they are at that particular moment. So we have students in pretty much some of the best universities across the world, from Harvard Kennedy to Lee Kuan Yew to London School of Economics, Oxford, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, this is a nice stepping stone. And the important thing that I can say with a fair degree of certainty and confidence is that some of the best universities in the world recognize Takshashila's courses as a valid stepping stone towards their masters.
Okay, Anupam. So, like in the website, I mentioned that it was mentioned that some workshops are in Bangalore, but due to COVID, there won't be any work. The workshops will be online. So, yeah, coming, like, our batch starts from, if it starts from 4th September. So, will there be any offline tasks for workshop?
No. So again, given how the situation is, we will not be having any offline component for this and the next cohort for sure. And then we'll take a call, next March or something. But until then, we're going to do everything online. I don't think it's worth the risk for any of us. And given our experience over the last, multiple years of running everything online, I think we're in a very nice place of being able to offer extremely, high quality education online. So I think it's going to be online.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah, Sean.
Hi, thanks. Two questions. First one, I'm not attending from India, so are there any specific requirements apart from timing which need to be kept in mind?
No, not really. I mean, as long as you can attend a majority of the webinars which take place on Saturday. So depends on where you are. Where are you from?
I'm based in Singapore.
You're based in Singapore. Okay, that should not be too bad. I think it'll be
It's fine.
early morning on, you just have to wake up really early on Saturdays then.
Oh, actually, it's in the afternoon, so it's even better. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Actually, yeah. Sorry. You're ahead of us. Yeah. In fact, yeah, that'd be even easier for you. So those, as long as you attend the webinars on Saturday, and then we'll have the workshops. Workshops you might find slightly more challenging because we probably end at sometimes at about 6 in the evening, which is, I don't know, 10, I'm not really sure what's the time difference, but yeah, slightly later into the night for you. But apart from that, everything else is designed in such a way that it's asynchronous. So you read on your own time. There are group activities, but you don't necessarily have to be at the same time with the others. You'll have to contribute in your own way whenever you have the time. So the 3 webinars on a Saturday and the workshop is all synchronous, which means you'll have to be there at that time. The rest of it you can do at your own time.
Got it. Second question is, I know the applications are being considered right now. So are there specific criteria under which you do not accept applications?
I won't tell you that, but no. Okay. So the philosophy that we by and large go with is that okay, so there's a basic criteria of what their minimum educational qualifications, which I think is a bachelor's. Even there, I think we, in exceptional cases, we admit people who are in their final year of bachelor's, because we want to try and teach public policy to as many people as possible. Criteria for rejection would be if we find that you might be a potential disruption to the entire cohort, which means that you have extremist views on any aspect or you're in some way, disruptive, that we find you to be disruptive. Or the most important part of your application criteria is your essay. It tells us how you're thinking about certain things, right? And why you're doing this. That gives away a lot. So for instance, if you plagiarize in that, and quite a few people do this, believe it or not, people plagiarize their essay, their application essay from a standard, why should I do a public policy course, and copy paste, those are immediate rejects. But a little bit of thought put into the essay, I think should be good enough by and large.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Yeah, Arindam?
Hey, hi Anupam. Out of the 4 streams that are there on the for this GCPC course, so the 3 seem to be specializations, and the advanced public policy stream seems to be a generalized stream. Am I getting it correct? I mean, is that a generalized course? And I mean, how do I choose which one? I mean, all the 4 seem interesting, but should I, if I want a generalized view of public policy making and governance and all, should I go for the advanced public course, public policy course stream, or will the other 3 specializations also have generalized aspect to it and then deep dives into that?
Okay, so the way I would look at this is that the first 5 weeks gives you that generic overview and the concepts, and so there you go into policy analysis concepts, economic reasoning, which by and large is basics of microeconomics, and so on in the first 5 weeks, right? And then you go on to specializations, and you apply all of those learnings. So you apply those learnings for example, in the health and life sciences course, you apply that to the public health sphere. In the defense and foreign affairs, you apply it in that sphere, etc. In the advanced public policy course, you apply it to pretty much, it's a much larger, broader aspect for sure, but you apply it to the public policy making in India. And so therefore, the advanced public policy is necessarily a much larger net, is a broader kind of net. So unless you're, the way I would recommend that you approach this is that unless you're already absolutely sure that, I want to make a career in tech policy, or I want to advance in tech policy or HLS or DFA, etc., probably the advanced public policy course is the one thing. But in any case, what I would again also suggest is that you don't really have to worry too much about it now, because you can sign up for anything now, and after the 5 weeks you can change as per if your taste change, if your interest change, if you get a better idea of what each one is, and so on, so you can change at that time. So that don't worry too much about there's not an irrevocable choice, right? You can always come back and
Okay, thanks.
Garima.
Yes, yes. Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, I thought you're actually the name says Garima's iPhone, so I thought the iPhone finally, artificial intelligence
Yeah.
is here. It has gained cognizance and it's able to communicate. So,
Yeah,
who am I
technology
speaking to,
finally
Garima
took
or her
over.
iPhone?
Well, I'm the iPhone speaking. You are correct about that. So I think you actually already answered my question, but just to confirm, so you guys did mention that post week 5, one would be able to get a better idea of the niche they took, like the specialization. So is that correct? Can one change their stream, for the lack of a better word, post week 5, or is that rather rigid in that way?
No. So you can change. You can only change at week 5. Anything beyond that, I think you'll just end up missing out. That's the reason you can't change it later. So you go up to, let's say, week 8 in one stream, and then you try to switch. You're just going to lose out on a lot. So you change exactly at week 5.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, but the good news is, and this is again me acting as a Takshila salesman, but the good news is that you can, once you finish the entire GCPP, and after we have completely wowed you from by our course, you can choose to do just the specialization bit later. So there's something called an advanced special course. So you can basically do, let's say, GCPP and specialize in technology policy. Since you're iPhone speaking, that might be of interest to you. And then so choose that in the next cohort, you just do the 7 weeks of specialization in health and life sciences.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course, for an additional fee, but you probably knew that.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Anuradha?
Hi, Anupam. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I have question regarding the time commitment. So I am already pursuing my law, which I enrolled just, I'm in the second semester. So there is a lot of time commitment there. So I would just like to get a better understanding of what is the time commitment expectation, during the week, and what kind of, readings do we get? Typically, how many pages? If you can give some idea, that would be helpful.
Okay, that's. I'm glad you asked that. I think that's an important question. Okay, so you have the 3 webinar slots on a Saturday, which is fixed, and then again, so the GCPP is largely a self-motivated, self-selected kind of course, right? People don't necessarily come to GCPP because their parents are forcing them. Right? I mean, it's not like an engineering degree. So what you get out of the GCPP is by and large what you put into it. So you can just about get a very basic understanding by putting in something like probably 8 hours as a minimum, 7 to 8 hours as a minimum. But I think about 12 to 13 hours, and you would get fairly good returns from it. 15 hours, I think, would be exceptional. So the breakdown of that would be that you'd have to spend 4.5 to 5 hours on the webinars each week. I would say about 5 hours of reading in each of the streams. So different streams will have different kind of readings. They're barely, by and large, we don't give you an entire book to read. It's articles, it's relevant, it's things that are happening today. It might be chapters of a book, it might be some journal paper, etc. But as much as possible, it's tailor-made. A lot of this thing is also just watching videos, for example. There's curation of that, etc. So that's, I would say, about 5 to 6 hours a week of reading. Another 2 to 3 hours, ideally, you would have to do. This is for a good returns policy, right? Another 2 to 3 hours is where you would want to write or practice at least what you've read. So whether it's writing, whether it's other forms of communication that you want to practice, talking to your peers, exchanging views, any of these things, I would say probably, and group activities takes up about 2 to 3 hours. That's by and large. And then, yeah, the quiz, etc., studying for the quiz, which should be part of all of this. But yeah, so there and thereabout. So as I say, you can get away with 18. And if you want to think purely in terms of grade, which I'm not really used to, and I don't think any of you are used to, but for something like a C grade, you can get away with 8 hours. If you want a B plus, I think about 10 to 12, 14 would give you an A. That's the correlation I would find in my life, in my head.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dinesh Ravi.
Hi, Anupam. This is Dinesh here. So my question is, I kind of sense that students who are gathered here are across various age groups, and some of them are beginners, and some of people I feel have already accomplished in their field. And if we are going to make groups, how, on what basis will it be? And that was my.
So, no, so don't worry about that. That's actually the fascinating thing about GCPP, because you'd find that a typical GCPP cohort would have people who are just about 20, 21, probably in just, people who finished their bachelor's. I have people who are CEOs of company as students as well. Big companies who are probably in their 60s, just about to retire. So, you find in terms of age range, all of this, you find in terms of experience and expertise all across, you might have, but it could be that the 21-year-old is a bachelor's, or has done a bachelor honors in public policy, but the 6-year-old CEO has no clue about public policy. So you find all kinds of really interesting mix in all of this: age, gender, occupation, expertise level. It's all really well mixed. So in terms of the group activities, etc., it will be random. It'll be about 12 people in a group, 10 to 12 people in a group, and it'll be random. So there's a good chance you'll meet 12 extremely exciting and interesting people.
Sounds interesting, Anupam. Thank you, and looking forward to the course.
All right, fantastic. Shishir?
Good evening and Jai Hind. I am Lieutenant Colonel Shishir. I have completed about 16 years of service in defense in army, and looking for second career for myself. And hence, I have been nominated by my organization for doing this course. Presently, I am posted in JNK, and generally in army, we don't have Saturdays off. So morning session will be difficult. After the say 1 o'clock or something, that will be easy. So attending the first session on Saturday will be a bit difficult. That was my first query. Secondly, will this course be useful for me? I want to pursue my second career in some kind of public administration kind of field. And third question is, do you have any defense officers who did this course earlier?
Yeah. So I'll answer the second and third question, and then I'll defer to Malti, who's the overlord of the entire defense and foreign affairs program, to answer the first question. So second, will it be useful for you? So I have a vested interest in answering this, but I will say yes. If you want to get into public administration, only going by the fact that we've had a lot of people who've done this and gotten into public administration. Now, again, I'd like to draw a difference between the two. Will it help you get into public administration? Again, the Indian government does not recognize this as a qualified course, etc., etc. So that I will say no. But will it help you in doing your work better? I will, with some degree of certainty and confidence, I can say yes. Third, the defense and foreign affairs has a huge cohort of personnel from the armed forces who are doing it. So that comes in two ways. One, the army headquarters themselves, the different army headquarters, army, navy, and air force, they nominate their people to come and do this course with us. So each cohort, we have about 100 armed forces officers with us who do this course. But we also have a lot of others who've done the course out of their own volition. So yeah, that is for sure. So if you do the GCPP, you'll find a lot of your colleagues or your former colleagues. The first one, yeah, Malti, about timings.
Yeah, so Shishir, yeah, we do have, in fact, majority of those attending the Defense and Foreign Affairs program are from our track, as in they are from the army. So we get this question asked multiple times, and eventually it's about those 12 weeks. If you can take permission, because it is just that one period, right, in the mornings. We always encourage that. But if there is an unavoidable circumstances under which you cannot attend, then the recordings are available. But then again, remember, you're missing out on all the interactions that you have with faculty, the live interactions that you could have, and also with peers. So we always encourage that you attend all sessions.
Yeah. So for people from the armed forces, we're extremely sympathetic to obviously the situation they're in. I mean, sometimes people are posted in places where internet connectivity might not be best, or of course you're on official duty and you might not be able to do it. So we'll do our best to compensate for that. But we also expect the same from the people who've joined us to do their best to join us as much as possible. So I think we'll find a way.
I had just one question.
Yeah.
Arindam here.
Yeah.
So once we've been like admitted to the course, when we log in, will we be able to see right now the reading lists, or will that get updated then sometime later?
Right. So Arindam, once you've paid, you've completed the complete application process, including the payment. Currently the list is being curated. So another week's time, like a week prior to the start of the program, you should find the list up.
And for the journals that you mentioned, do we have to take membership for those journals, or will we get?
No. Any reading list that we give in terms of journal articles, etc., we will give you the. Okay. I don't expect you to have a subscription to those journals because they cost a lot.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Those will not be too much, by the way. I mean, because by and large, I mean, there might be a few, and we will provide you the PDFs of those.
I have another question. This is Anuradha. May I ask?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So I just heard Malti saying that after you've completed the application and paid the fee, I think fee you have waived, because I remember writing, and Malti, I think you've responded that we have waived the fee.
Anuradha, there's a couple of things. One, I think the waive might be the application fee that you're talking about. That's been waived, but there is a program fee that ultimately as the student fee that you'll have to pay.
Eventually, right? After the selection?
Yeah. So once you've applied, then you get through, there's a selection that happens, you'll get an offer from us, and then you'll be asked to pay a fee, and then you pay that, and then you're enrolled into the.
Yeah. So nothing at the application stage, right? So I just want to clarify that. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hi, Anupam. So I had a couple of quick questions. The first one was, I'm interested in the HLS program, and you mentioned that most of the projects right now are COVID-19 related. And given that I'm interested in applying for the spring cohort for next year, I just wanted to get an understanding of some of the other projects that might be going on within the HLS specialization. I know you alluded to biobanking in your presentation. Are there any other projects that y'all are working on? Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things. I think by and large, the COVID thing is slowly drawing to a close. I mean, unless we find something exceptional to add to it, which might not be the case. But we do look at public health in some detail as to how do you strengthen public health systems in India. And then we also did how do you reform the entire structure of public health in India, for instance. There's a whole bunch on, I'm not the right person to speak about this. Let me give you that caveat right away. You're probably better off just going to a website and looking at the research on that aspect. But as far as I know, yeah, there's projects on gene editing and generally gene technology and how do you approach that. There's bits on public health. I think you're best served by going to Takshila's website and looking at that.
Right, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sanjay here. I think your question was already answered. Just a quick one. Apart from the journals, books, will it be given as some studying material, or we should purchase these books if anything is recommended apart from the journals?
So yeah, okay, so we don't provide the books. There are few places where we have recommended the books, but what we have tried to do is you can get by about 85 to 90% of the program without having to purchase anything, because we've tried to keep that in mind that not everyone might have institutional access to material and might not have, of course, might not have the resources to always go out and buy a lot of these books. So the idea is that more than 85 to 90% of the course are material that we give to you, which is online articles, as I said, some papers, book chapters, which we have provided, etc. But beyond that, if there is something that interests you, so we might put up recommendations saying, it would be great if you read this. You can go ahead and do that. Now, in the offline world, we had a library, Takshashila, where you could come in and take some of these books and read it. But of course, now since we have, we are not really operating out of office, we find that difficult. So what we've tried to do is pivot to largely online reading material where you can, learn, as I said, about 85 to 90% on just using that. The other 10% is up to you. I mean, if you want to purchase that book, you can. Agarwal, N. Agarwal.
Yeah, hi. This is Nishal. A very quick question. How much of the course is focused or sort of set as a context in sort of an Indian context versus applying it more generally? Just asking because I'm not based in India. I was just wondering, how much of the concepts that are taught come from an Indian perspective versus kind of more general.
Right. Okay. So I would say this is still largely a course in public policy for India. And the way that we do that is that you look at, as we said, we follow this kind of framework-based teaching, which you can apply to pretty much anywhere in the world, the frameworks you can apply. But what we teach is by and large application of those frameworks into the Indian context. For example, if we talk about the economics of health, that is a topic that is applicable anywhere in the world in terms of, what is the, how do you diagnose and how do you look at health policy, diagnose as not the patient, but diagnose health policy or problems in health, in public health. Those are principles that you can apply anywhere, but our focus will still be India. All right. Thank you so much, folks. I'm extremely grateful and glad that you took the time out to join. Hopefully, we cleared some of the questions that you had and maybe even inspired some of you to join the course. So if that is the case, I really look forward to meeting all of you during the program. The important thing about, I think, all of this is that the course is fun. And that's the way it's meant to be. It's supposed to be all said and done. It's supposed to be learning, but it's also supposed to be a fun experience. And so therefore, I look forward to that and meeting all of you in the program.